Okay, let's get into it. We are doing a deep dive today into the U.S. economy as we head into 2026. And the source material we're working with, particularly for Reed Norvin's big analysis in the Global Review, well, it's not talking about a normal recession, not a recovery either.
No, not at all. They're describing something fundamentally new. The term they use is a structurally distinct high-friction era.
High friction, that really says it all, doesn't it?
It does, and it means the old playbooks, the standard cyclical analysis we've used for decades, they just don't apply anymore. So our mission here is to really unpack what's driving this, especially the role of AI in this pretty radical shift in what human labor is actually worth.
Which brings us right to the big takeaway for you listening. If you've been trying to see the economy through that K-shaped recovery model, well, that's now obsolete. It's just too simple for what's happening.
That K is kind of warped.
Yeah.
The core insight Novin gives us is a totally new model. He calls it the fractured hourglass.
The fractured hourglass, okay. That sounds a lot more fragile.
It captures the reality of it. The split isn't just rich versus poor anymore. The whole structure is changing. You've got this widening gap between people who own assets and AI-integrated capital on one side.
And then everyone else on the other side who still depends on their paycheck, on their labor income, in a world that's getting more and more automated.
Exactly. And this is all happening just as the U.S. is hitting its 250th anniversary, its semi-quincentennial. That puts a tremendous amount of stress on the system when the economic ground is shifting so fast underneath.
It really does feel like that. Okay, so let's start with the macro view. What does this economy actually look like in 2026? It's not a boom, it's not a bust. What is it?
Well, the term the analysis uses is stagflation light. And the lead part is really important. This isn't the sharp, scary inflation and recession risk we were staring down in, say, 2022, but it's also nothing like the slow, disinflationary world of the 2010s.
So what does light actually mean for people's wallets?
It means you have this weird combination of surprisingly okay growth on one hand, but paired with costs that are just stubbornly high. The economy's moving, but it feels expensive.
And that growth is interesting. Real GDP is still projected at a pretty respectable, 2.0% to 2.25%. If inflation is still a problem, where is that growth coming from?
It's coming from one place, really. A massive concentrated driver.
Yeah.
The AI capital boom. The source points to a huge $450 billion injection just from AI-related capital spending.
Wow.
Yeah. AI has become the main engine of non-residential investment. It's growing around 7% a year. That's what's keeping the headline numbers looking decent.
So you have this tech-driven growth, but then there's the human side. And there's this incredible disconnect in the data, right? Consumer spending is actually solid. It's up 4.5%, and that's across all income levels.
But consumer sentiment is still stubbornly, persistently negative. And that's not just a blip. It's, I think, deep psychological scarring from that inflation spike. People feel like they're falling behind, even if their wages have started to catch up a bit. The memory of prices jumping so fast is still there.
And inflation itself hasn't gone away. Core inflation is stuck, hovering near 3%. Why can't we shake it?
Well, goods inflation has cooled off. Supply chains are working again. But services, that's the sticky part. Disinflation there has slowed way down. We're talking about labor-intensive sectors, healthcare, hospitality, where it's hard to get big productivity gains, so higher wages get passed right on to you as higher prices.
And on top of that, you have policy making it worse. We have to factor in the pass-through effects from those 10% effective tariffs that were put in place in 2025.
Precisely. Those tariffs, they act like a quiet tax on everybody. And they just keep eating away at purchasing power, especially for lower-income families who spend more of their money on basic goods that are often imported.
All while the Fed is trying to navigate this new world. We're clearly not in the zero interest rate environment of the past decade anymore.
No, they're on a tightrope. The Fed funds rate is expected to level out around 3.5 to 4.0%. And that higher rate isn't an accident. It reflects these big structural changes like, much higher public debt.
That's the elephant in the room. The debt service, the interest payments on over $35 trillion in national debt, is just eating up more and more of the federal budget. That's money that can't go to research or infrastructure.
It's a huge constraint. It means if another crisis hits, the government's ability to just spend its way out of the problem is, seriously limited.
Which puts all the pressure back on the private sector. And speaking of which, let's pivot to the labor market, because this is where that AI capital boom starts to feel very, very real for people's jobs. The analysis calls it a low-hire, low-fire regime.
And that caution is everywhere with employers. They don't want to let good people go. That's the low fire, because some skills are still really hard to find. But they're also not going on big hiring sprees, the low hire, because frankly, technology can now fill a lot of those gaps more cheaply.
And 2026 is apparently the turning point. It's the first year that agentic AI, we're talking about systems that can handle complex tasks on their own, really started displacing mid-level white-collar jobs.
It's not about the factory floor anymore. The bullseye is on routine cognitive work, compiling reports, drafting basic legal docs, running standard financial models, that kind of thing.
The numbers are pretty shocking. The source says entry-level hiring for college grads has dropped by nearly 30% since late 2022. A 30% drop. What does that do to the value of a four-year degree?
It's causing immense pressure. It means that traditional career path of get your diploma, get a stable office job, well, it's breaking down. The jobs being targeted are the junior analyst, the paralegal. The very stepping stone jobs that used to lead to a career are just vanishing. AI can do that initial work faster.
But at the same time, you have this total contrast with skilled trades. They're doing great.
Exactly. Plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, healthcare aides, they're largely insulated from this. Their work requires manual dexterity, real-time problem solving in messy, unpredictable environments. And AI can't figure out how to fix a leaky pipe in a crawl space.
Which leads to this phenomenon the source calls a remarkable wage inversion, where an experienced master electrician can now make more than a recent grad with a humanities degree who's struggling to find any job that pays 50 grand.
It turns decades of career advice completely on its head. And it really brings us to the most important distinction in this new labor market: the difference between tacit knowledge and codified knowledge.
Okay, break that down for us. Codified knowledge is what, exactly?
Yeah. Codified knowledge is anything you can easily write down in a manual. A set of rules, a process, a basic financial report that just pulls in standard data that's codified. It can be turned into a system, and because of that, it's really vulnerable to automation.
And tacit knowledge is the opposite.
It's this stuff you can't write down. It's learning by doing. It's intuition. It's context. That plumber who just knows how much force to use on an old fitting, that's tacit knowledge. The nurse who can calm a distressed patient. Tacit. You can't teach it from a book, and AI can't replicate it.
That completely changes the game. And the implications for education are just massive. That college wage premium we've always talked about seems to be flattening out.
It means the focus has to shift. It has to be about vocational training, real apprenticeships, and constant reskilling to build practical skills, not just, abstract theoretical knowledge.
Let's shift to something very physical: housing. The affordability crisis is still a huge problem. Mortgage rates are expected to average around 6.3%. And the analysis says just waiting for the Fed to cut rates won't fix it. Why not?
2 words: the lock-in effect. We're all living with the hangover from that decade of ultra-low interest rates.
The numbers on this are just wild.
They are. Something like 80% of all current homeowners have a mortgage rate below 5%, and half of them are below 3%. So for any one of those homeowners, it is completely rational to never, ever sell that house unless they're absolutely forced to.
So what's a smart decision for an individual becomes a total market failure for everyone else. It just kills supply.
Precisely. It's keeping housing inventory about 12% below what was normal before 2020. And with so few houses for sale, prices in the desirable areas just keep climbing, freezing out first-time buyers.
So the only real solution is building more. It's not about interest rates.
Not fundamentally, no. It's about supply. You have to streamline permitting, get rid of exclusionary zoning, and just make it easier and faster to build. Otherwise, rate cuts just pour gasoline on the fire.
And on the debt side, while mortgages are mostly stable, there are these pockets of real stress showing up in consumer credit.
Yeah, that stress is really concentrated among lower-income households, the bottom part of that fractured hourglass. You see it in rising delinquencies on auto loans and credit cards. They have jobs, but inflation means their paychecks just don't stretch far enough. Their cash flow is negative.
And let's add one more huge structural change into this mix: demographics. In 2026, for the first time in U.S. history, the old age dependency ratio is going to be higher than the youth dependency ratio.
The silver tsunami has officially arrived, and the impact on everything, from our budget to our social fabric, is just profound.
And you see that immediately in the elder care crisis, which is hitting the sandwich generation so hard.
Absolutely. There are these acute labor shortages in caregiving, and they're being made worse by some of the restrictive immigration policies from 2025. I think the source said non-citizens make up about 13% of that workforce. So if you shrink the labor pool, costs go up, And it puts this incredible strain on families trying to care for aging parents.
And just one last piece on housing finance. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are expected to return to the public markets.
Right, after 17 years. The key thing to watch there isn't the stock price. It's making sure that the implicit government guarantee stays in place. That guarantee is the secret sauce behind the American 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. It's essential for stability. If that goes away, our housing market changes, and not for the better.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. The sticky inflation, the AI displacing white-collar jobs, the housing lock-in. How does all of this feed into your central thesis of the fractured hourglass?
The hourglass model really helps visualize the three distinct economic strata that are forming.
So let's start at the top of the hourglass.
At the top, you have the asset owners and the AI integrators. This group is thriving. Their wealth comes from stock portfolios, real estate, and from using AI to boost productivity in their businesses. They are the direct beneficiaries of that AI capital boom. Their assets are growing faster than inflation.
Then there's the wide base at the bottom, essential labor.
Right. At the bottom, you have service workers, tradespeople, caregivers. Their job security is actually quite high because their work requires a human touch, that tacit knowledge we talked about. But they are trapped. High costs for housing, for healthcare, for everything eat up all of their income gains. So they're working, but they're not getting ahead. They can't build wealth.
And then the most dangerous part, the middle, the squeeze.
The middle is where the squeeze is happening. This is your traditional white-collar knowledge worker. And their skills are being commoditized by AI. Their career ladders are flattening or disappearing. The college degree that was supposed to be their ticket to security is losing its value. This is the group that's losing its upward mobility.
And that narrowing of the middle, that's the real threat here, isn't it? If that huge group of people who are supposed to drive the consumer economy can't build wealth, the whole foundation starts to crack.
That's the core danger. And that economic anxiety is what fuels political instability. Novin's analysis connects this directly to what he calls the semi-quincentennial divide, this deep institutional polarization we're seeing.
And this divide is more than just politics, right? It's actually affecting the business climate.
Of course. When public trust in institutions is this low, it creates uncertainty. Businesses become more cautious about long-term investments, and you can see it in the political debates heading into the 2026 midterms. It's all about cost of living, immigration policy, and public safety, all direct reflections of these economic pressures.
So the inescapable conclusion from this deep dive is that 2026 isn't just a cycle, it's a structural inflection point. The U.S. economy still has incredible strengths, innovation, capital markets, but we have to adapt.
And that adaptation can't be small tweaks. It means big strategic thinking. Completely rethinking education to focus on vocational and AI skills, a massive push on housing supply, and facing some really hard choices on fiscal reform to get that debt under control.
It feels like a moment of profound choice, especially with that 250th anniversary looming. The source suggests that this anniversary is an opportunity, a chance for renewal, and the fundamental choice the country faces is whether we can adapt our institutions to make sure that all this amazing technological progress leads to broadly shared prosperity or just further fragmentation. The decisions we make in 2026, I mean, they're going to echo for a very, very long time.